Assalamualaikum. My name is Mariam. Firstly, what is forensic psychology? The term forensic psychology was first introduced in Britain in 1953 by Lionel Howard. It is defined as a branch of applied psychology concerned with the collection, examination, and presentation of evidence for judicial purposes. In simple terms, forensic psychology is a subdiscipline of psychology that focuses on the interaction between human behavior and the criminal justice system. Forensic psychology helps courts and law enforcement understand the mental and emotional aspects behind people's actions, particularly in criminal cases. This field explores important questions such as whether an individual was mentally competent when the crime was committed or if they are fit to stand trial. There are two main areas in forensic psychology: applied work and research. Applied forensic psychology includes assessing offenders, providing therapy and counseling to inmates, and consulting with attorneys, judges, and law enforcement. Research, on the other hand, examines the relationship between law and psychology, including criminal behavior, profiling, treatment methods, and the impact of a crime on individuals and society. So who are forensic psychologists? They are professionals who apply psychological knowledge to legal issues. Their role is to translate psychological findings into language the court can understand, ensuring fair and informed decisions. To perform effectively, a forensic psychologist must have a solid background in abnormal psychology, which studies mental disorders and abnormal behavior, social psychology, which explores how people's behavior is influenced by others, psychological testing, used to assess mental health and personality and development theory to understand how our behavior develops, and lastly, an area of specialization such as juvenile delinquency. Pathway on becoming a forensic psychologist begins with a bachelor's degree in psychology or other related fields, followed by a master's degree in a specialized area such as clinical or forensic psychology. After that, one must register as a licensed clinical psychologist and gain practical experience in the forensic settings. In conclusion, forensic psychology is where science of human behavior meets the pursuit of justice. It ensures that the legal system understands not only what people do, but why they do it, combining the knowledge, empathy, and law to serve the society more fairly. As we move from what forensic psychology is, let's look at what forensic psychologists actually do, such as the services they provide and the jobs they perform. Forensic psychologists deliver a set of specialized services that directly inform legal decisions. These include forensic evaluation and assessments, such as determining the competency to stand trial, assessing criminal responsibility, and evaluating the mental state at the time of an offense. These assessments combine clinical interview data, psychometric testing, file review, and collateral information. Another key service is risk assessments, which involves evaluating the likelihood of violence or reoffending using structured tools and actuarial or clinical judgment. Forensic psychologists also provide expert testimony and forensic reporting, where they translate clinical findings into clear, court-usable opinions and written reports that meet legal standards for expert evidence. In addition, they contribute to treatment planning and recommendation for offenders, such as rehabilitation programs and mental health intervention that aim to reduce recidivism and support reintegration. Forensic psychologists' day can vary widely between assessment, consultation, and documentation. Their daily tasks include conducting structured interviews and psychometric testing, synthesizing the results into formal reports, preparing and delivering courtroom testimony, and attending pre-trial meetings with legal teams. They may also consult with police, probation services, or prison staff on case management, treatment planning, or interview strategies. They may also participate in multidisciplinary meetings with psychiatrists, social workers, and other professionals to ensure comprehensive case management. Forensic psychologists work across multiple settings, including courts, prisons, forensic hospitals, police departments, probation services, private forensic clinics, and research institutions. Each setting has different emphasis, for example, focusing on risk management in secure hospitals or rapid evaluation for police custody decisions. Beyond direct evaluation, forensic psychologists also engage in specialized functions that extend their role beyond assessment. They may advise on investigative strategies, helping determine how to interview suspects or vulnerable witnesses. They also develop offender profiles and behavioral analysis to assist in ongoing investigations. They also train law enforcement personnel on recognizing mental health issues or effective communication techniques. Forensic psychologists also conduct applied research aimed at improving assessment tools and treatment methods.
Good morning, everyone. Today I'll be sharing about ethics and professionalism in forensic psychology. So, what does ethical mean? Being ethical relates to our beliefs about what is morally right and wrong, while professionalism refers to the qualities and behaviors expected from skilled and trained individuals. Let's go deeper into the ethics part that I have picked several points from the specialty guidelines for forensic psychology by the American Psychological Association. First, under the section of responsibilities, there is integrity. A forensic psychologist must strive for accuracy and honesty and resist partisan pressure. We also need to have strong self awareness to avoid any biases that will interfere with our cases. For example, forensic psychologists must offer psychological support fairly despite the gender and behavior of the client. Next is assessment, where forensic psychologists should only provide test data of the examinee as required by law or court. Psychologists must be aware before revealing the results of the assessment data so as to avoid any discrimination or stereotypes from any party towards their client. This profession also requires us to undertake ongoing efforts to develop and maintain our competence through learning and training. These practices might help reflect respect and fairness for all genders, especially when handling cases related to gender identity issues. Moreover, forensic psychologists must not engage in any form of bias or discrimination based on clients' gender and behavior. For instance, assuming that most violent cases are caused by men. Last, for the ethical part, is maintaining confidentiality. Forensic psychologists need to be more sensitive about protecting their clients' privacy and information to ensure a safe environment for everyone. Now, let's look at professionalism points that I took from the Ethical Principles of Psychologists and Code of Conduct, also by the American Psychological Association. A professional forensic psychologist should demonstrate good communication, such as using appropriate legal language in reports and testimony. We need to be aware and understand how our tone and body language will affect the way the messages are being presented. To illustrate, when speaking with either male or female clients, we need to use the same tone without being stereotypical. We must also do proper documentation, preparing accurate and detailed reports that are useful in legal investigations that are unbiased on gender. Next, teamwork is equally important as forensic psychologists often work closely with police officers, lawyers, and judges. We need to work professionally by having effective communication, respecting each other equally, and being open minded to accept others' opinion despite their gender. Furthermore, having emotional stability is also crucial as it helps to avoid burnout or bias and stay objective when handling sensitive cases that might influence our judgment, such as the way we react to clients' traumatic or disturbing cases history. And last but not least, we should always maintain a professional appearance and behavior, as this helps gain trust, credibility, and respect from others. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and a very good day. I'm Husnata Balkis and I will be presenting about the issues of self-awareness and gender equality in forensic psychology. First and foremost, the definition of self awareness is the capacity of becoming the object of one's own attention. Hence, why forensic psychologists must be deeply aware of their own thoughts, emotions, and biases. Well, it is mainly because self awareness prevents personal bias from influencing professional judgment. Forensic psychologists work in high stakes legal settings where their evaluations can affect sentencing, custody, risk assessment, also legal outcomes. Without self awareness, personal beliefs about crime, gender, culture, religion, or morality can unconsciously distort assessments. A self aware forensic psychologist constantly checks: am I being objective or influenced by my own assumptions? Secondly, awareness of emotional reactions is critical for ethical decision making. Forensic work involves violent crimes, sexual offenses, child abuse, and trauma disclosures that may make psychologists unconsciously feel sympathy, anger, disgust, or judgment. which, if unmanaged, can bias conclusions. Self awareness helps prevent counter transference and emotional reactions toward the client that influence decisions. It is also important to note that self awareness ensures cultural and gender sensitivity. A forensic psychologist must recognize if their own cultural or gender based worldview is shaping interpretation. For example, by assuming a woman is passive or assuming aggressive behavior is normal for men, that is dangerous bias. Self awareness allows the psychologist to separate personal upbringing from professional evidence. In addition to that, self awareness also protects against burnout and emotional fatigue. Forensic cases are emotionally heavy as the long exposure can cause idle heartedness or emotional numbness. A psychologist must notice signs of fatigue, frustration, or loss of empathy and seek supervision or rest before decisions become careless. A self aware forensic psychologist maintains mental stability to ensure long term ethical practice. To put it briefly, self awareness is not just about knowing yourself. In forensic psychology, it is a professional safety mechanism to avoid wrongful judgments, protect the client's rights, and maintain justice in every decision. On the other hand, gender equality refers to the equal treatment and opportunities for people of different genders. The topic of discussion is how gender inequality becomes a professional challenge for forensic psychologists. Initially, gender inequality begins before the justice system, as it is shaped by life circumstances. Many women and marginalized genders grow up with unequal access to education that cause gender gaps, limiting knowledge, career paths, and independence. They carry greater unpaid household and caregiving responsibilities, which restricts economic freedom and increases vulnerability to exploitation and criminalization. As forensic psychologists, we must acknowledge that offenders and victims do not start from equal life conditions as gender experiences influence trauma patterns, behavior, and mental health. In addition, bias and stereotypes affect legal outcomes. In forensic psychology, bias may cause us to assume men are more dangerous, or women are always victims or less credible witnesses. A forensic psychologist must actively challenge stereotypes during risk assessment, competency evaluation, or courtroom testimony. Internal biases must be constantly checked and challenged to ensure justice is fair and based on evidence, not assumptions or stereotypes. Besides that, many assessment tools were originally designed using mostly male data. Research shows risk assessment tools can overestimate women's risk because they are not fully validated across gender. A forensic psychologist must critically evaluate whether the tools or scoring system are gender fair before using them in court. On top of that, gender inequality also exists inside the profession itself. Women in psychology often face gender pay gap and career barriers, such as lower promotion as well as lower representation in expert witness roles. Women also is pushed into a more gentle image of victim support roles, while men dominate high power expert roles. That means forensic psychology itself must practice gender equality as in equal leadership, equal mentoring, and equal access to high level roles. Therefore, a forensic psychologist must intentionally ensure gender aware practice and advocating equal treatment inside the justice system and inside the profession itself.
Hello, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Najila Tara, and well, we heard all about the forensic psychologist field. So, what does it take to build a career in this unique field? Here, I'm going to explain 4 practical suggestions for aspiring students and professionals. First of all, your academic foundation is crucial. Go beyond just getting good grades. Truly master clinical and cognitive psychology. Plan for a doctorate and make your education interdisciplinary with courses in law and criminology.
And don't underestimate the power of research. It builds the analytical skills you'll need every day. Second, cultivate the right mindset. This work requires unwavering objectivity. You'll serve the court, not a side, so ethical rigor is non negotiable. Be intellectually humble. It's okay to not know everything. And finally, build resilience to handle the emotional weight and slow pace of the justice system. And third, get your feet wet. Theory isn't enough. Seek internships in correctional facilities or mental health courts. Network with professionals in this field. And one of the easiest and most valuable things you can do is spend time observing in a courtroom to see the process firsthand. My fourth and last suggestion is perhaps the most personal. Know yourself. Actively identify your biases before they influence your work. Check your motivations for entering this field. Prioritize self-care to prevent burnout. And constantly practice translating complex psychology into clear, simple language for the judges and juries. And to recap, first of all, build a strong academic base. Second, develop a professional and ethical mindset. Third, gain real-world experience. And lastly, never stop working on self-awareness. It's a demanding path, but for those called to it, it's an incredibly vital and rewarding profession. Thank you. Najila Tara. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.